Welcome everyone, and thanks for tuning in to the ANA webinar, the 2020 Genius Awards, What You Need to Know to Win, by Mark Vermouth from Newstar and Gail Fugit from a Genius Awards judge. Mark and Gail, please take it away when you're ready.
Terrific, thanks so much. And before we jump into the content, we wanted to show a brief video that'll give you a real tangible sense of what the Genius Awards are and why they're so exciting.
Machine learning, which is technically 2 words.
Holistic.
Creative.
Evolving.
Transformational.
Evolving.
Automated.
Live.
Insights. Speed. Clarity.
Women. Could be alcohol.
Democratization.
Testing. Omnipresent.
Everything.
Ubiquitous.
Ubiquitous.
Empowering.
Oxygen.
Imperative.
Exciting. Incredibly exciting.
Terrific, thanks Barbie. So brief introductions. I'm Mark Vermouth. I'm a VP of Marketing Solutions at Newstar, and I have been involved with the Genius Awards for the last several years. And it's been really rewarding to watch analytics and data providers really be recognized within their organization for the work that they're doing. So we wanted to walk you through today a little background on the Genius Awards, as well as how and why you should enter and why it's not a hard thing and why the benefit can be so tremendous for yourself and for your organization. Gail?
Hi, I'm Gail Fugit. I've been a judge for the Genius Awards for a number of years, since the very first data and measurement conference that the ANA put on back when I was at the ERF. And I want to, first of all, thank Newstar and the ANA for sponsoring and showcasing data and measurement and marketing analytics and the importance of analytics in getting to growth and solving the biggest challenges facing advertisers today. And then second, just to reinforce how important it is to be externally focused, because there really isn't any one company that's going to have all the solutions. And so I want to thank and congratulate everybody that's on the webinar for reaching out and being willing to share your solutions and also learn from others.
And I think that's what's really important to understand. The marketers who have entered have come from a variety of different industries. It's B2C, it's B2B, it's technology, it is experience. These are some of the winners from the last few years across the categories. And you can see the broad swath of industries that are covered. And we've had over 125 marketers participating and demonstrating the growth and adoption and storytelling and innovation that they've been able to create within their organization to have a material impact on their business. And what's really tremendous about the platform is that it's not just exposure externally, as Gail said, and you have that exposure. A number of finalists and winners of the Genius Awards have followed on with stage representation at different ANA events, and in fact the analytics committee for the ANA, which just met a couple days ago, had Diageo presenting some of the work that they've been doing. So it enables you to get in front of your peers, but more importantly, it enables you to hone your story internally to make sure that it's clear the role that analytics can play in driving data-driven decisions for marketing organizations and for the company more largely, because the data and the analytics that we're able to do today are not just about the messaging in the media. They touch upon all of the elements and levers of marketing within an organization. And so the ability to showcase that internally often has more benefits and payoffs than the external recognition. But in addition to that, the external benefit is also that you're doing good in the world. So the prize money that's associated with the ANA Genius Awards is pooled together and then shared out to a charitable organization selected by each of the entrants and then the winners. And you could see the kind of national and localized benefit across a broad range of issues and needs that we have in our country today for the benefit that we're able to drive through this program. So not only are we recognizing the amazing things that people are doing, but then we're able to enable amazing things for the customers and the prospects that we serve as well, which is also a great thing about the program. So let's dig into the meat of it, and really you're here because you want to understand, if I enter, what's going to make this compelling? Where should I enter? What is the category that makes most sense to me? So let's start with, what are the judges looking for when evaluating entries? I think Gail is probably best suited to talk with some expertise about this.
Thanks, Mark. And I really do appreciate your comments about communicating internally in your organization as a way to take potentially one project and really turn it into a movement and create change management within your organization. But that really comes from that internal, succinct storytelling. And so what we want to really continue to reinforce is it's just as important how you tell your story, to kind of synthesize what you did and how you did it and why you did it, to then tell a story and kind of take a stand. What happened? What were the outcomes? So here's what we're looking for as judges. First, think about the C-suite and what keeps the C-suite up at night. What's keeping advertisers up at night? What's keeping marketers and the CMO up at night? A well-known CMO once told my counterpart at their company when I was at General Mills, who was leading insights and analytics, he said, if I have a marketing problem, you have a measurement problem. And so a lot of times the magnitude of the problems addressed comes directly from the C-suite. I would encourage you all to look at where did these problems emanate from, who cares the most, who are the internal stakeholders for these problems, and how can I appeal to them and make sure they know, and then deliver my results on a timely basis. We certainly look for innovative approaches, but not just shiny objects. It's really easy right now to throw out big data and the Internet of Things, and there's so many different solutions, augmented reality, virtual reality. That's great, but what's really important is a combination of innovation and scientific rigor to make sure that we actually are measuring and are able to validate the results in the spirit of experimental design and really valid and reliable research methods. Then the steps taken to align the stakeholders, and one of the things I think you'll all be gratified by is that the categories from growth to adoption to innovation to storytelling and impact, they all reflect being able to take some steps to align key stakeholders. What I want to reinforce there that we're looking for as judges is partnerships and collaboration. And I'd say collaboration instead of competition. So even in some cases where clients have been able to align competitive suppliers, so to speak, vendors and solutions providers, that gets to a greater good, that would be a very impressive kind of step taken to align key stakeholders internally, but then also externally in the marketplace. And finally, the impact on the business. And this can be measured any number of ways, but as much as anything, what I want to encourage all of you to do is think about who the stakeholders were that cared the most about what you did and that saw the greatest impact, and ask them for a quote. Ask them to make a statement about why this work that you did was important, what outcome it led to from their standpoint, and what they would like to see done again going forward. What I found is that when we could have the presidents and the marketers in the divisions and the people from the board of the ARF and the variety of places that I've been able to spend my career, is that a quote is just a really impressive way to bring objectivity rather than just kind of chest beating, bragging. And so I want to encourage all of you to go out. And also, when you ask for a quote, it's remarkable how impressed some people are with your work that you wouldn't have necessarily known not having asked for it.
And the other benefit of thinking that in the approach, and it's going to come up probably in questions and we're going to talk about it, is how much proprietary or confidential information do I need to provide in order to make a substantial entry? And this is one of the ways in which you can document impact through quotes and through directional improvement ranges. You don't have to provide financial information and hard metrics that would be proprietary or otherwise challenged to share with the marketplace in order to have a very compelling entry. And that's one of the ways of doing the storytelling, so you're able to convey the impact while still maintaining the sanctity of data that isn't meant to leave your company's walls. So I think what will be helpful is thinking through and understanding how these elements apply across the categories, and for you to start thinking through, for the achievements we've had over the past year, where do they fit best? And it's possible they may fit in a couple of places, and that's okay as well. So walking through and thinking about this was starting with growth. And what we're going to do is we'll talk a little bit about last year's winner and how that aligned with the category. And Gail's going to be able to provide some more context around it and broader thinking about how she evaluates entries that come in for each of the categories. So growth is pretty straightforward to one extent. It's achieving significant and quantifiable business growth that's driven specifically and demonstrably by marketing analytics that you bring to bear. Last year's winner was USA for UNHCR, which is the U.S. Fundraising organization for the UN Refugee Agency. And their goal, obviously, is to provide better care for refugees using data. And that's not just about them actually using data to deliver services. They need funding in order to support the services that are being delivered. So in this case, it was their data and analytics team, as they came forward into the world as the refugee crisis became, unfortunately, a much more prominent problem that the world was facing in 2015. And what they realized was they could more effectively grow their donor base and to better serve refugees if they can gain more insights into what drives contributions. They had 8 different fundraising teams, and the data was in multiple silos. So as Gail said, bringing together internal and external vendors of information and data was a critical problem that they faced. So they had to first bring it all together. And by bringing it together and having that data in one place, they were able to use natural language processing and topic modeling along with advanced segmentation capabilities in order to look at audience segments across the different channels in which they were achieving funds coming in, so that they were thinking about the donor as a holistic individual as opposed to separate entities within each fundraising, so they could maximize and focus on where to target the right donors at the right times in the right places to make a material impact on the funds that they were able to bring in for the UNHCR, which is amazing because A, the business does better, but B, the world does better.
So Mark, what I especially like about this example is, look, everyone is working on putting segments together and audience segments, and you'll see in a couple of these examples the challenge to get the right message to the right person at the right time. But when you think about how to tell the story, and you were kind of bringing it to a heart place kind of at the end there, think about being a donor and segmenting donors. And what better way to understand how to segment donors than to look at the language that they're actually using as they talk about the donations that they're making. So this application of natural language processing, that can be viewed as big data, and then you kind of put it in a black box and you get these segments out, and that could be a very kind of almost sanitized, kind of very, very cold scientific thing. But if you really think about the heart of this in terms of natural language processing and taking the language and creating audience segments and sharing that language back to the audience in their language and their voice, and then creating these lookalike models and segments to be able to consistently build up their donor base I just think this is a really important, a full kind of portfolio of solutions in a way, in terms of starting with the individual and how they speak, aggregating it, and then creating these larger audience segments that are, it's head, heart, and then feet is actually increasing the donations. And for what more important thing than really helping the refugee population.
But I would say this is still incredibly topical, because you might look at this and say, but I'm not a nonprofit. This is interesting, bringing the heart in or thinking about who my customers are, but we're in the middle of an experience where empathetic marketing right now is exactly what marketers are seeking to understand. And they're also trying to understand their audiences and customers and their behaviors better, given the state of the world as it is today. So my guess is there are a lot of analytics and data teams out there churning through these types of analyses to give greater insight to the marketing strategy team, to the media planning team, and to their agencies to figure out how to engage with their customers and those they want to be their customers in an authentic way that resonates. And the work that brands and marketers have done over the last year to put themselves in a position to be able to do that is the type of things we'd love to see, especially as it relates to focusing on driving ultimate business growth.
Great point. The messaging is critically important. I recall back in 2008, 2009, doing a lot of research among food insecure consumers back in that recession, which was nothing compared to what we're dealing with right now. There was a really big difference between food insecure households that said they were scared and other households that said they were uncertain. And I think marketers are really going to be looking for ways to hone their messaging in order to protect their brand. It's a different angle on brand safety, but definitely something that people are going to be very concerned about. Marketing dollars are going to be precious, and marketers are going to want to be sure that their dollars are being spent to have the greatest impact.
Which is the perfect segue into the second category of organizational adoption. One of the things I heard when I first got into the marketing measurement game was that you don't want your work to be a science experiment, something that's really interesting that might prove or disprove a hypothesis, and everyone goes, oh, and then they move on, right? And so what we really want to showcase is the ability not just to impact growth, the ability not just to do something innovative, the ability not just to bring storytelling, but to bring all of those elements together to drive broad-based organizational adoption, not just of this one specific application of a capability, but broadly making that capability part of a platform. And last year's winner was Adobe, and that is exactly what they did. What they focused on, called Project Karma, was adopting a data-driven, individualized lifetime value model to better understand their customers. Now, lifetime value models aren't anything new. We've had lifetime value models for a very long time. But what they did was a couple of different things that really led to the aspect of organizational adoption. The first is they were focused on bringing together data from all parts of the organization. And so not just in the data warehouse that they had, but understanding the needs, because Adobe is a very large company that has multiple different buying audiences, customer audiences, B2B, creative audiences, and sort of one-off project audiences. So their selling model is very different. And they wanted to talk to those types of audiences consistently, but make it feel very personalized for them. What really, I think, drove the fact that this was organizational adoption is this is a lifetime value metric in a SaaS company that traditionally is focused on annual recurring revenue. And they were able to move the organization by partnering across finance, across marketing, and with their analytics and data sciences team to bring customer lifetime value as a metric upon which marketing performance was evaluated in a standardized way. And they took an initial use case for how this would be applied by finding who in the organization it would be most impactful for and would be most open to trying and then advocating for the solution. And they leveraged that success to, within a year, apply the capability to several different frameworks at the most granular level for business units in terms of who they were targeting, to the most aggregate in terms of where their marketing dollars were prioritized across markets by evaluating short-term versus long-term impact of their marketing. So while this is sophisticated and challenging, what was most important here in the recognition was around the adoption they were able to drive from a use case of using machine learning and data science to inform marketing or creative decisions. And then secondly, getting the organization as a whole to move to a new metric to evaluate the performance and the focus and planning of their marketing investment dollars.
So Mark, I don't have a whole lot to add. That was just really well articulated. But I have two quick comments. I think this is a story, I remember this case, and it's very impressive. And as a judge, and what was impressive was it was speed versus perfection. Basically, they moved across the entire organization, and a year is very fast to be creating a platform instead of a project. And for those of you in larger organizations, a lot of times we wait until something is perfect before we show it to any of the other groups in the organization. And this really was handled in a different way. In this particular case, there was this kind of vision of having a platform, not just a project, and moving it quickly across the entire organization. So the stories that you're able to tell, my advice is twofold on this as a judge, is first of all, what's old is new again. So as Mark pointed out, lifetime value, that's a metric that's been around for years and years. Don't take for granted that you have to come up with something brand new and 100% different than anything that's been done before for an entry. Look for places where reinvention is happening among tried and true marketing principles. It's really important, especially now. And then the second thing I'd add is to add in the story of how you collaborated. And I also want to reinforce that sometimes there are a couple of false starts when you're trying to create change in an organization. And as a judge, that's something that's impressive to hear about, is we tried this and it didn't work, and then we tried this, and then we took parts of each of those and put it together, and we went and found a sponsor. That's a kind of story that explains, like, it doesn't make it all sound like perfect and tied up with a bow. It has a reality kind of to it.
Awesome. And here we have the flip side of that, which is really thinking about innovation. And it doesn't necessarily mean, when we talk about Longhorn in a second, that you're innovating a completely new methodology, but you could even be revisiting capabilities that you've leveraged by bringing in new data or new ways of integrating that data into the methodology of the analysis to have significant impact. And so this is using a progressive analytics-based approach to solve a business challenge or seize an opportunity. Last year's winner was Longhorn Steakhouse. And what they did was rethink the use of programmatic display and how to leverage their first-party data to more effectively target and then measure within display advertising. And what they did was they created a new framework that enabled them to track media impressions and store visits, bringing it together in a first-party data, in a first-party lens, and adding attributes about their audiences that they knew from first-party behavior as well as from second and third-party data sets. And by analyzing that, they actually were able to find out, and it's not surprising, but that people who lived within a specific driving distance of a given location would be 50% more likely to visit the restaurant if they're within a certain amount of proximity to that location. That's not earth-shattering. What is innovative here was the use of different data sets to integrate them together, and they also extended the insights that they had to the marketing itself. So instead of just targeting those audiences and then the lookalike audiences, so you're extending beyond who you know to who is like them, they changed their messaging. So rather than going with a new product launch or using discounts or focusing on low price, they actually focused on the amount of time it was until you could have their steak. Compelling to the audiences they were targeting, who were already aligned with the need for meat for dinner, but also resonating with the messaging that they really cared about. They were more propense to visit the location because they were closer. You were priming that propensity to get them to act. So it was the combination of all of these things that enabled them to do something that everyone generally attempts to do in the normal course of business and understand segmentation and lookalike modeling and targeting within display, but using a new lens because there's new data sets that they can bring together to analyze to then act upon.
So, Mark, what I think is really important and innovative about this solution is it's a closed-loop solution in a way. They start out by building custom target audiences. Then they went into media, dynamic creative insertions and optimizations, so optimizing the message based on the needs and the location of the audiences. And then finally, to be able to close the loop and measure how much more likely people were to visit that restaurant under those particular circumstances, so they could scale those solutions to build more business, and which especially fits between location technology and fast casual dining, which is that it's a really competitive landscape, and so that level of innovation in that approach is really impressive. What I want to finally emphasize is those of you that may be reluctant to figure out how to put your entry together without giving away your secrets, so to speak. Mark talked about this earlier. The story here is basically that they were able to identify that guests were 50% more likely to visit a restaurant. And that doesn't really give away any specific data that would be something you'd want to insulate from a competitor. So I think it is encouraging to the industry. It gives the judge a metric, enough of a metric to see that, okay, there is a magnitude of change here, and they actually did roll it up. So it isn't just innovation as we had this cool idea and we did it. But it also is understanding and appreciating that in a category like innovation, you're not necessarily going to be able to close it to specific case sales every single time.
Awesome. So storytelling. So this is the idea of using your data and then your analytics to tell an enlightening visual story to support your business goals and or open up new opportunities. This is the bridge that if you can't cross, innovative insights and data never lead to growth because you're unable to compellingly convince the stakeholders you need to take action on your analysis to actually do so. And it's a nice parallel that last year's winner, the Pittsburgh Cultural Trust, also, you don't have to be the world's largest marketer to be recognized for doing innovative work in any of these categories. So it's not about the size of the impact from an absolute terms. It's about the work that you're doing. What's interesting about the Pittsburgh Cultural Trust, and they're in the business of storytelling, so I'm glad they're good at this. It is their mission. It is the largest property collection in the country. Basically, they took downtown Pittsburgh in the mid-'80s and they transformed it into a cultural and arts center where they have over 1,200 performances a year. They have theaters, galleries, parks, open art installations. And this is the organization that's focused on supporting all of those different venues in marketing and cross-selling ticket sales so that they all win. And they've been doing this for a long time. They have 30 different cross-sell models that they've been working on. The problem that they seek to solve here was the idea that Broadway blockbusters, especially if marketing was focused on that and the programming was the same night as programming for other venues in this area, wasn't actually helpful for the area. So there was a myth, and they wanted to demonstrate value for not just the shows that were coming in, but for the fact that you could leverage those shows for cross-selling. So they pulled together a significant database, and they went in and they did analysis in order to demonstrate that first-time attendees at Broadway blockbusters, so we're talking about loyalty and repeat visits and trial, and validating that the marketing you spend to initiate it is on audiences that matter, and it's not one and done. They're not just coming in to see Hamilton. You're engaging them with the idea of cultural performances so that they'll come back. They found that over 25,000 first-time ticket buyers made at least one subsequent purchase in the district, meaning they went back and they saw another show or they visited another venue. An average reactivation rate of 56% and follow-on revenue generation around $24 million. And when they did an analysis of the continued repeat purchase patterns, they found that reactivation for people who came in for the Broadway blockbusters, we're only talking like 9 over a couple of years. You're not bringing in a lot of blockbusters. Follow the same patterns of reactivation and reengagement as the rest of the portfolio of audiences that come in. So they were able to demonstrate with really great visuals, and they provided visuals with their entry, how they're able to convince these creative organizations and marketers that while they may feel that I'm just coming in to see Hamilton and buying the recording of it, they actually were bringing people in to engage with live entertainment overall. And so not the largest brand in the world, but a really compelling way to visualize an analysis and to debunk a significant myth that was causing challenges among the people that they were serving, their internal stakeholders.
Yeah, just to build on that, the idea of being courageous enough to go after, every single organization has a set of beliefs about what they know about consumers, but I think especially in this time that we're in right now, all bets are off. And it's a time for the researcher to come forward and the insights and analytics leaders and be able to take some of those myths and look at busting them. So this is it's an opportunity to do that. That took a lot of courage on their part. I want to reinforce this idea in the definition for storytelling because it's one of the latest shiny objects that everybody is really compelled by, but everyone has a slightly different opinion about what it actually is. And so I just want to draw people's attention to the idea of an enlightening visual story, because for submissions, you can submit in writing or video or both. And I would just encourage, especially for this storytelling category, that video would be a really good idea, and that actually having people comment and tell their story about how they were able to create change, growth, and demonstrate leadership. I think this one is ideally suited for that.
And not just that, but, and Gail talked about this before, the very process of going through this, entering this contest for recognition actually forces you to hone your story about your project or your platform, which will help you sell it better internally. And if you think about this as your own marketing campaign and how you tell the story about it, it's only going to benefit you to get continued permission to do the type of work that you want to do with the stakeholders that you have. So the entry process itself is going to have benefits internally because you can share all the material and the collateral and the visuals and the video to your stakeholders so that they can truly appreciate and recognize and stand back and understand the impact you're already having in your organization. So in terms of the hard timelines that we're looking at, the contest opened up on March 5th when nominations and entries were open. We'll talk about the process in a second. June 1st, so it's a little under a month away, is the final entry deadline. But as you'll see, this is not a heavyweight exercise of pulling together a 90-page PowerPoint presentation in order to make a submission. And we'll go through that in a second. It's more about, can you concisely and compellingly communicate why what you have done over the last year fits within the category and is worthy of recognition amongst all of your peers. The great part is that the finalists get announced at the ANA Data and Measurement Conference, which is currently scheduled for the end of September. It's an opportunity to be recognized among your peers. And the Data and Measurement Conference is actually, well, so I'm personally biased when I talk about it, but it's a tremendous event that the ANA puts on because it's practical presentations from people who are doing the data and measurement and analytics and insights and all the brand marketers that you want to meet and engage with. And it's a very large conference that gives you the opportunity to do that. And then the winners are announced and are on stage at the ANA Masters of Marketing Annual Conference in October. But more importantly than being at the conferences is the opportunity to engage with the broader ANA ecosystem and the follow-on opportunities you have to present at the one-day member conferences and at their larger conferences is really tremendous, not just for your own personal exposure to the audience and for the networking, but also then you're going to be at those events to learn from your peers. And that stronger engagement in the world of the ANA is also a benefit in and of itself because it's a tremendous organization that's doing a lot to advance the capabilities of brand marketers. And this is a way to showcase it, but also for you to learn from others as well, because we're always improving. In terms of the website, it's pretty straightforward. There aren't meant to be a lot of hard things to do. This is the home page. We focus on the 4 categories, and the menu bar at the top takes you to exactly where you need to know. If you want to know a little bit more about or some of the FAQs, which we're going to share in a second, it's there. If you want to dig deeper into the categories, we also share some of the types of questions you should think about addressing for each of the categories specifically. And then lastly, nominate and enter, which is the main thing you want to focus on. So the process itself, wrong button, how do you become a genius? Well, you have to start first by understanding your story and determining which category or categories you want to enter or you want to nominate someone in. So you don't have to be nominated to do this. This year we have opened up the process to allow for agencies and other client partners to nominate the brand marketers that we're working with in addition to direct entries by the brand marketer. Obviously, if you're nominating a brand marketer for entry, they need to be involved in the process and aware of it, but there's no reason you can't work with them in order to help showcase the work that they've done. As Gail had said, it's not an island that's creating these capabilities. It's a cross-section of internal as well as external stakeholders as you bring together all of your different vendors and partners who enable you to do this because it's all about bringing together different capabilities and data. Now all you have to do is create an account, pretty straightforward, log in to start or continue your entry, and then upload all supporting files. While it's probably not that large on your screen, the reason that I highlighted a little bit of text and the red stars on the screen cap of the entry award is to just reemphasize, A, the value of video collateral assets in making your submission and storytelling your submission, even if it's not just for storytelling, and the fact that the entry itself is 2,000 words. This is about making sure you can concisely and compellingly tell your story by answering those questions. It's not about lots of charts and graphs, although visual supporting materials are also things that you can upload that will make your entry more compelling. It's about getting to the heart of what you accomplished, either in terms of driving growth or adoption or innovation or storytelling. So what details should it include? And Gail spoke to a lot of these. Set the stage. Why were you approaching this? What was the thing that you were trying to solve for or the hypothesis that you were trying to validate or debunk? Have you done it before? Had it failed before? And you had a key moment of insight that let you be successful this time? Because rarely do we succeed the first time out the gate. Then who were the key stakeholders and what roles they played? To Gail's point, it's and she'll talk a little about this in a second, it's about the cross-functional relationships that you build in order to be successful. Talk about the tools and methodologies used. This is about data analytics. So there are tools and methodologies to touch on to demonstrate the scientific rigor in the approach you took. Qualify the results or the impact that was gained. And it doesn't have to be with proprietary information. You need to be able to describe quantitatively, but you can do it in qualitative language. And as Gail mentioned before, with supporting quotes from the different stakeholders that demonstrate the the true impact that you had, and then provide any supporting insights or data that align with the category that you're entering. Gail, any other thoughts about these different types of information that you want to include, what people should think about as they document those out?
I would say, keep it simple to this idea of getting to 2,000 words, and we all know it's easier to do 20,000 or 200,000 words than 2,000. By sticking to that is really, why is this important? How did you decide you wanted to approach it? What was the business problem? What did you do to put your strategy together? And then this notion of who did you work with? Who did you enlist as a stakeholder? Just reinforcing keeping it simple. And then finally, I would just build 100% on Mark's comments about the benefit of putting your story together. I look back on my career, and once a story like this gets put together and honed into 2,000 words, it could end up in a board of directors meeting, and it certainly is the kind of collateral that's at company meetings, that's in department meetings. Those are internal platforms, but it could become a journal article. It could be something that you could blog on. There's so many different posts and organizations. And then I would put in a plug for across the organizations, of which the ANA is a marquee organization for the marketing community. But near and dear to my heart is the Advertising Research Foundation, the 4As. There are plenty of other industry associations in this marketing and analytics world that are really hungry for new content and really innovative ideas, and more than willing to create programming. The IAB, there are a number of different organizations, but that I just really like the point that Mark, you really made, that there are a lot of benefits that transcend just this particular one entry for you as a leader.
And to gain that, I think that we all have to overcome our own internal biases, that just because we were able to achieve this, we were able to roll up this program, that means, well, anyone could have done it. It's not worthy of recognition or impact. And you need to step back and realize that what we do is really hard. And it is probably likely that if you had quantifiable impact on the top or bottom line of your organization, where you were able to fundamentally change how people worked or what they focused on, or you were able to innovatively adjust or change a tried and true methodology to extend it into new sets of data or new applications, not everyone else could do it. So think about what you've achieved last year that you're proud of. Don't discount that just because you did it, anyone else could have done it. And that's what you should focus on. Everyone is doing really hard things, even if it feels simple in hindsight. So think about what you've accomplished and delivered over the last year, and realize that if you can demonstrate and point to the impact it had in the organization, it is absolutely worthy of consideration and recognition, both internally and externally. There are some FAQs that I'm not going to read through. They're on the website, and we're also sending out the presentation as well. I think the key things to call out that we hadn't talked about before on here is an ANA membership is not required to submit an entry. This is about the community of marketing analytics. It is not just about membership. It's about recognizing good quality delivery where it occurs. There's no fee to enter. And the other thing I would say is you're not in this alone. There is an email on the website for contact us. It's geniusawards2020@gmail.com. Please reach out if you have questions and you want to understand, is this worthy? Or what category should I be thinking about? Or if I have positioning questions about how I'm making my entry, would this make sense? You'll be getting feedback from the team that has been driving the Genius Awards over the last several years. We're not the judges, but we know the judges. And we have a sense of what they're looking for. And you've heard a sense of what you're looking for from Gail today. So we're here to make this easy for you to benefit and achieve. And that's really our focus. At the end of the day, we want you to show us your genius. So thank you very much for your time and attention. And if there are questions for anything we haven't covered, it's pretty straightforward. We just want you to be as excited as we are about what this platform can really do for the marketing analytics community, please let us know. We're happy to answer them.
Great, thank you so much. Great job with this. We have about 10 minutes for questions, and we'll get to those shortly. Quick reminder again to everyone, you can continue to submit questions now using the Q&A window on your screen. So I had a question about submitting videos. Is there a limit as to how long these videos can be? Should they be like a sizzle reel or case study type of video? What do you recommend?
I would say that you don't want to be too long, such that you lose the interest and attention of the judges. So focus on making sure that you crisply get through what you want to cover and show the clean visuals. Gail, if you have a sense of what has been more compelling for you in the past, that would be helpful. Oh, and it's up to 3 minutes from the platform.
Yeah, I would say as short as possible. Make yourself watch something that's 3 minutes long and then go from there.
Thanks.
Okay, great, thanks. I'm going to give people maybe a few seconds to see if they submit any other questions.
Sure. I think this is a really straightforward entry process. Please reach out and email us if you have any specific questions relative to the entry you want to make. I'm going to assume that that's some of the questions that you have, but not something that you want to have answered on an open webinar, which is absolutely fine. So please reach out to us. Please go to geniusawards.com. You can see past winners to get a sense of what they've done. You can see how easy the process is of entering, and we really want to recognize the work that the community has been doing. Thanks so much for your time and attention today.